Welcome back to a playoff edition of the Jon Krawczynski Show with Jon Krawczynski from The Athletic. I'm Jim Souhan from the Star Tribune and TalkNorth.com. This is TalkNorth.com. We're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services Studios. We're presented to you by Lexus of Wayzata and Maplewood. Thanks to all of our sponsors, all of our listeners, all of our live hosts that have made this show such a success. Great time of the year to be listening and watching this show because of Jon's expertise. We're talking after Game 5, before Game 6. And Jon, it has gotten very interesting. You were in Denver. I'm just going to throw it open to you. What was your feeling about where this team is coming out of that game?
Yeah, I mean, of course, everything was riding on a high coming off of Game 4. They play so well even after losing Donte DiVincenzo and Anthony Edwards. And I think that there was a real sense, both within the team and within the fan base, that they were going to go to Denver and finish this thing off. I think what I realized during that game and afterward is that they, I think, needed a game to kind of get used to their new normal, to really understand that, hey, this is the way that life is now without Donte, without Ant. How are we going to go about attacking Denver? How are we going to play defensively? And you saw Chris Finch experimenting with a bunch of lineups and rotations. And so I think that these 2 days between 4 and 5 or 5 and 6 are just huge for them to try and recalibrate and go into Game 6 with a more definitive, clear plan of attack. It was a lot of experimentation in Game 5, and it didn't go particularly well. And so now they have to just settle in, relax, and be like, all right, this is what we have. Here's how we go about beating Denver.
Yeah, I thought what was really interesting is that probably two of the biggest Wolves' flaws in that game were unforced turnovers, or it just felt like they were trying too hard or pushing too hard, and then terrible transition defense where they just didn't seem to know who should be matching up with who. And, of course, DiVincenzo, probably their best transition defender. So I thought those two things, if you clean up those two things, doesn't mean the Wolves win, but it means it's a game in the fourth quarter.
Yeah, I think, Julius Randle put it kind of succinctly when I asked him about it after the game, and he said, look, we scored 113 points and we had 25 turnovers. So that does really just kind of tell how much of it was us beating ourselves. And I'll give Denver some credit for playing a little harder defensively and being a little bit more active in the gaps and things like that. But one thing that really struck me in watching the game, both watching it in real time and then watching it back, was a lot of the turnovers felt like fumbles, felt like, there was one or two, there was at least two, I think, where Timberwolves grab the rebound, they look to throw the outlet pass, and they throw it right to a Nuggets defender. And so I think that Denver does deserve some credit for being a little more physical, being a little more active, packing the paint a little bit different way defensively. But really what it felt like was a lot of guys looking around and saying, we don't have Donte DiVincenzo, we don't have Anthony Edwards, I have to do much more. And enforcing that, I think that they sort of played out of body a little bit. So their biggest challenge in a very high pressure Game 6 will be, can they just play within themselves and not try to do too much? And if they do that, I think they have athleticism advantages. I think they have, other advantages around the court that should allow them to be very competitive and even win the game. But it's going to be as much of a mental hurdle as it is a physical one.
It is the nature of sports fandom and sports analysis to get into the details and dig all this stuff out. And everything you said is right on. Just to set the table for the rest of the discussion. Excuse me. Just to set the table for the rest of the discussion, they are without their franchise player and the guy who was the best player in this series. Let's not minimize at all the fact that this is a big ask.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, Denver's missing. We think we'll still be missing Aaron Gordon and Peyton Watson, or if they do play, they'll be diminished. So they certainly have their own injuries, but there's no comparison really when you look at them missing their starting backcourt. their best player, the guy who has so much gravity on offense that he opens everything up for everyone else in Anthony Edwards. Even when two out of the first four, 3.5 games was not playing particularly well. He was 1 for 8 before he got injured, but his presence alone on the court just draws so much attention from the opposing defense that there's no coincidence that Ayo Dosunmu has free runs to the basket, that Jaden McDaniels has open looks, that Julius Randle has a little bit more room to work with. That's all Anthony Edwards and the gravity that he brings to the table. And then Dante DiVincenzo is their heart and soul. I mean, he was their best plus-minus guy through these early games of the playoffs and through much of the regular season. He's the guy who brings kind of the grit and intensity right to the table. He's really good defensively, and he was shooting the ball very, very well as well, and just a floor spacer. And so it still would be the Wolves were prohibitive underdogs in this series before they got any of those injuries. And so now with them out, they should be prohibitive underdogs. So if they are able to win this series, if they are able to get one of these last 2 games, it will be an incredible accomplishment for them, just given all the things that they've had to deal with in this series, without a doubt.
Yes. So knowing what they have to work with, do you think Finch makes any lineup or minutes played adjustments going into Game 6?
I think this is the whole key to the series, Jim. And I don't know what Chris Finch is going to do, because on one hand, he has Mike Conley, who he trusts implicitly, the safety blanket for this team. Coming off of a game where they did commit 25 turnovers, where it did look shaky from a mental aspect at times during the game. And that is always a time that he goes to Mike Conley or Kyle Anderson to settle things down, to run the offense, to just cooler heads prevail, that sort of thing. But for all of the stability that Mike brings to the table, it feels like the best way for the Timberwolves to win this series is to overwhelm Denver with physicality and athleticism. And that means Terrence Shannon Jr., maybe even that means Jalen Clark a little bit. And Jalen was really good in Game 5.
He was.
And so I really do wonder what Chris Finch is going to do, because this game, Game 6, should be viewed as Brian Windhorst said, the Super Bowl for the Wolves. Like, can they go back and win a Game 7? Yes, they can do it. We've seen them do it before, but I think they have to throw everything that they have at Denver in Game 6 and try and end this series now. And so, how do they go about doing that? And to me, like, there is a clear answer of Terrence Shannon Jr. in terms of an offensive driver, but he also brings defensive issues. Like, he has game plan mistakes defensively. And so there's no perfect solution to all that is ailing the Wolves. And so I think it's going to be some mix and match. It's going to be some gut feeling and some read and react to what's happening in the game. And they're going to just have to be incredibly flexible about what they're seeing in the game and make quick adjustments if it is not working. And so it's going to be, if they win this game, it's going to be a Chris Finch game as much as it is, anybody who's actually on the court.
You know what I'd do? I would bring Conley off the bench as my calm things down guy, and I would start Bones and Ayo and just see if their pace, athletic ability, 3-point shooting may just cause some real problems for the Nuggets.
It's absolutely an option to explore. I think, so when we're talking about imperfect solutions, you can bring Bones in as a starter, and I think that he could absolutely knock down 4 threes in the first quarter, and you are off and rolling, and you're going to bury the Nuggets right away. He also could be put in the starting lineup, and I'm in the starting lineup in the playoffs. Let's go against this team that I don't like, and I'm going to be the one who, is responsible for winning this game. And then turnovers or defensive issues, things like that. And so you wonder, can he handle the excitability of it? Can he handle the massive moment that really is? The other argument for bringing Bones off the bench is it does allow you to balance the offense a little bit more. Like if you bring Bones in and he's, leading the second unit and starting the second quarter, it might be a little bit, you have a little bit more scoring with that second unit and that first unit. So, but I totally agree that that's something that the coaching staff should be looking at, because, there is an argument to say that if you kind of roll the dice, if you gamble with this game 6 and say, like, we're going to put the team out there that we think actually has the highest ceiling, maybe that is Bones or that is Shannon, and the potential to get out to a good start is right there. And if that happens, I really do believe, Jim, if they get out to a really fast start and they throw a punch right away, I don't know that Denver's going to respond to that. So there is that. But then if all of the emotions kind of get a little bit too big for this team and they're down early, that's what gives Denver belief, and that's what gives them confidence. And it's a team that you want to get on top of early, and then you want to wear down by the fourth quarter. And I think that's the recipe. It's just, I don't know which path they take to try to get there, but there are two starkly different paths, and it is going to be on this coaching staff to choose the right one. And it's not an easy choice.
It's not. And when I make a suggestion like that, believe me, I understand that there are no perfect solutions. You're just trying stuff. And
for sure,
one thing might be 10% better chance of working than another. There are no perfect solutions. But let's get a little more into the coaching. We also, of course, want to talk about Jaden McDaniels here. First, I want to remind you we're coming to you from the Aquarius Home Services studio.
The Aquarius Home Services in Connecticut Customer Appreciation Open House is happening May 1st through 3rd. Score up to 30% off Connecticut water systems, water filters 20% off, heating and cooling systems up to 30% off, plus huge savings on generators, water heaters, and more. Don't forget to bring a water sample for a free analysis. It's food, fun, and savings May 1st through 3rd in Little Canada at 694 and 35E. Details at aquariushomeservices.com.
And here's John for Lexus, Wayzata, and Maplewood.
If you're in the market for a new luxury vehicle, look no further than our good friend Charlie Swanson at Lexus. Whether you're on the west or the east side of the Twin Cities, they've got you covered with two great locations, Lexus of Wayzata and Lexus of Maplewood. Check out the all-new Lexus TX, a spacious SUV with 3 rows of seating and plenty of room for all your gear. Head over to Lexus of Wayzata and lexusofmaplewood.com for details and to find your next ride today.
We also want to welcome Great Clips to our stable of advertisers. Great to have Great Clips on board.
A great haircut is always a mood booster, but it's even better when it's convenient, too. That's why I love online check-in at Great Clips. I just check in from my phone and get a ready next text when I'm up next. Plus, with the convenient hours at Great Clips salons, I can get a haircut even when I'm really busy. So if your hair and your mood could use a boost, download the app today. Great Clips. It's gonna be great.
All right, before we get to Jaden, let's talk about, it has been interesting. The Wolves absolutely torched Denver's defense early in the series, and Denver has gotten better. Now, they got to do it without, having to worry about Anthony Edwards and Dante DiVincenzo. That's a big part of it. But they have been better on the ball, on the perimeter, and Jokic is no longer just a swinging gate. He actually is standing there, at least trying to resist a little bit when people get inside. How do you judge that development? Is it mainly because of Anthony DiVincenzo route, or is Denver actually playing better defensively?
I mean, there's certainly a little combination of both. You're seeing more physicality from the Denver defenders, and they're playing with an urgency and a desperation that they should be playing with, on the brink of elimination. So there is that, but I also do think it is probably more so a product of who the Wolves are missing, because you are they are allowed, or they feel more comfortable packing the paint and just kind of trying to take away the drive, more so because they are not as concerned about Wolves players burning them from the perimeter. Ant and Dante are their two best 3-point shooters and volume guys, at least. And so when they were on the court, it just spread the defense out so much more. And when that defense is spread out, it was easier for the Wolves ball handlers to get by those defenders. And then Jokic was in more space in the paint and around the rim, and that's hard for him to cover. But in Game 5, they were able to kind of hang back, and the Wolves actually shot the ball well from 3, which was a good sign. But they were able to really clog those driving lanes a little bit more. We saw in Games 3 and 4 especially just a layup line for any Timberwolves player that wanted to go. And I think it was a little bit easier for the Nuggets to counteract that and to take that away when they did not feel that they had to be right out in the face of Edwards and DiVincenzo on the perimeter. And so a key adjustment for the Wolves is going to be still using their physicality and their quickness to get to the rim, but then making better decisions when they get there. There was too many times in Game 5 where they were on their way to the basket and then it was stripped away from them, or they fumbled the ball away, or they made a bad pass in traffic. And if they play cleaner on those drives, I think you're going to see that success at the rim return. Nikola Jokic doesn't just become a really good defender, in the middle of this series. I think that the Wolves have to use Murray and Jokic in actions a lot more defensively, wear them down as the game goes along, and then you'll see the Red Sea part kind of as we get into the late third, early fourth quarter, I believe.
By the way, for all of our sakes, any clue what time the Wolves might play if this does go to a Game 7?
We don't have a time yet. I think a lot of it depends on what happens in the other series. It doesn't look, Jim, like any of these other series are going to go that deep. And so it could be an earlier game. At least I hope it is. Then, all of these 8:30 starts are just brutal. But we will find that out, I would imagine, after Thursday night. We would know.
Right.
I mean, it's right away on Saturday, so it's a quick turnaround. But I would imagine it would be Saturday evening sometime.
Right. Okay. Good. Sounds good. Let's get to the coaches. Adelman, as we said, has gotten to play better defense against a lesser cast of characters, but still, they have played better defense. They got more out of their secondary players the other night. Christian Braun finally kind of showed up. How do you view this coaching matchup, and is one winning over the other? I mean, right now the Wolves are up 3-2. I'm not really talking about that. I mean, has one kind of been able to manipulate things more to their favor than the other?
Yeah, I'll say that, I've known both of these guys for a long time now. I knew David Adelman from when he was an assistant on the Timberwolves way back in the day under his father. I think the world of David Adelman. I think he's really, really smart. I look at this coaching matchup, and I do think Chris Finch has had the edge definitely in the first 4 games. I think that this Wolves staff had a real clear plan to attack the Nuggets, and they made the Nuggets really look bad with the game plan, with the scheme, with getting the players to adhere to what they wanted. Even remember, even before Anthony Edwards was hurt, he was far from 100% out there playing, but the Wolves were still having their way with Denver because of the scheme and because of how hard that they were playing. With Adelman, I think he was out adjusted a little bit early on. I actually, though, do think in watching this game or watching this series, I think this has much more been about Murray and Jokic not being kind of up to their expectations as a star duo. They were good in Game 5, but really in those 3 games in the middle that the Wolves won, those 2 guys were out of gas in the fourth quarter. And like, that's just not acceptable in the first round of a series to have your 2 best players huffing and puffing and getting, just run around. And so, it felt like that. And then, you look at, especially in game 4, the Nuggets shot 24% in the second half. Is that a David Adelman thing? It's probably not. So they responded well in game 5. Adelman helped get them onto the right page. But really, I think it just came down to, Spencer Jones and Cam Johnson, who were not at all in this series, combined to score 38 points. Are those 2 guys going to do the same thing in game 6 on the road at Target Center? If they do, the Nuggets are in great shape. If they don't, the Wolves are going to be in really good shape, I think. And so this is kind of more when you get deeper into these series, as much as the fans want to look at coaching and blame and fire and hire and all that, it comes down to, are your best players playing their best or are they not? And that's, I think, what's going to be the key in 6 and in 7 if it goes that way.
And the ultimate verity of the NBA is, do you make your shots? I mean, there are a million factors, but if you don't make your shots, you're dead.
That's it. I mean, Spencer Jones went 4 for 5 from 3. Like, that was huge for the Nuggets and good for him. But you saw, like, in the first few games, he didn't want to shoot the ball at all. Like, and he's a young guy. He's the first time in this and figuring things out. He wanted nothing to do with it. Cam Johnson was a ghost and wasn't bringing anything to the table offensively. And so that allowed the Timberwolves to really focus on Jokic and Murray, to make life hard for them. And the Nuggets are at their best, not when Jokic is scoring 35 points, but when he is spreading the ball around, finding open shooters, and then they are knocking down those shots. They shot horribly from 3 in the first 4 games of this series. And it came around in game 5. They were, at home, comfortable, the crowd on their side. That's usually when role players play well. And so what is going to be, I think, a big determining factor in game 6 is, do the Timberwolves get their Spencer Jones at home in somebody, whether it's Bones Highland, whether it is Terrence Shannon Jr., whether, it is, Naz Reid comes through, something like that. It's going to be a role player with a big game that swings it one way or the other, I believe.
We're going to have to talk about Kyle Anderson here in a little bit, but I think the first person we need to talk about is Jaden McDaniels. Let's do that after we thank TSR Injury Law, 612-TSR-TIME, 612-TSR-TIME. On Dawn Mitchell's show this week, at Sloan Martin, I'm talking about the Lynx and women's sports and curling and everything else. She mentioned that Rich Ruinen of TSR Injury Law, one of the partners over there, is a big curling guy. So fun to have Olympian. That reference. You guys, we got to know Rich a little bit when we first teamed up with TSR Injury Law. But important thing to remember is, if you're ever injured, they will help you out. 612-TSR-TIME. They'll give you great expertise. They don't charge you unless you win their cases, and they win a lot of cases. 612-TSR-TIME. Here's John for True Vision Institute.
True Vision Institute in Bloomington. Go to truevision.com. Set up your free consultation. If you're watching this on YouTube, you do see I have no glasses on. I haven't worn glasses or contacts for almost 2 years now, and it's made life so much simpler. Every day, I say I've been on the road a lot during these playoffs. It is just really refreshing to be able to go into the shower and look and be able to read, is it the shampoo or the conditioner or the body wash in those little bottles that you get in the shower? And that's no problem now that I've had LASIK surgery at True Vision. They take great care of you. They go guide you from the start to the finish. You go through the procedure. It is over in a matter of minutes. Have a little bit of recovery time, and then you're seeing clearly and easily. It's the best thing I've done for myself in years and years. So go to truevision.com and then go down and visit the good folks at True Vision in Bloomington. They will take great care of you, and you will be like me and wondering why you did not do this 10 years ago. Truevision.com, True Vision in Bloomington.
I'm wearing my sglambchops.com t-shirt and my sglambchops.com sweats as we speak here. sglambchops.com. What's going on with their business right now, John?
Yeah, if you go to sglambchops.com, use the promo code JONK20, you get 20% off anything you get at Lamb Chops. And what you get at Lamb Chops is just the most comfortable, stylish, casual wear that you can find. It's hoodies, it's hats, it's shorts, it's sweatpants, pants. I have a sweater that I wear to work sometimes so that you can dress it up as well. You can bring it out on the North Loop on a Friday night. You can hang in comfort watching a Wolves game at home on your flat screen TV. But they have just the best, highest quality stuff that you can get, and you look good and you feel good when you're wearing it. So you go to sglambchops.com, use the promo code JONK20 for 20% off anything you get at Lamb Chops.
We'll do a Twitter question sponsored by sglambchops.com to wrap up the show. All right, let's get to Jaden. I guess my summation of Jaden McDaniels in this series and during his career is I don't always love the actions. I do kind of love the attitude.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I said at the start of the series before it began, if the Wolves are going to win this series, it was going to have to be a Jaden McDaniels series, and it has been. Now, that includes what he has done playing on the court and helping this team win these 3 games and get a lead, but it also includes him bringing edge, to the proceedings with his mouth, with his actions, all of those things. And it has been highly entertaining to see Jaden sort of step out of Anthony Edwards' shadow a little bit. He has been the wingman for all 6 years he's been in the league with Ant. Now Ant is not here, and now Jaden is a main character. And he is learning what that feels like in a playoff series. We were at Game 5 in Denver, and they were chanting Jaden sucks and booing him every time he touched the ball, and he said he loved it, and I believe that he loves it. Like, he is that kind of guy who wants to bring that energy, and he wants to smile at you while you're running at him from across the court. Now it's going to be on him in Game 6 to play better. He didn't have a good game in Game 5. He picked up 2 quick fouls. He was in foul trouble most of the game. He didn't shoot the ball well. He wasn't really active offensively. He didn't rebound the ball well. And so as the game went on and as it was slipping away a little bit, it felt like he was getting a little bit more frustrated with things, and it was just not going his way. And so they need Jaden McDaniels to be at his two-way best in Game 6. And if he is, the Nuggets don't have anyone to cover him. And so he will have advantages to exploit. And I think he's 1 for 15 or 16 from 3 in these playoffs so far. So it'd be nice if he knocked down a couple of open shots. He was a 41% three-point shooter in the regular season. And so he's going to be at home. And I loved what Mike Conley said after the game. He said, look, I told Jaden that all of the hate that he heard and felt in Denver, he's going to feel 100 times more love in Minnesota on Thursday night in Game 6. And so the crowd will certainly have Jaden's back, and he just needs to stay out of foul trouble and be his best attacking self on offense and defense. And that will give the Wolves a great chance to win this game.
So when Jaden, ripped on the Denver defense early in the series, Finch was like, hey, he said it, now he's got to back it up. And he seemed a little perturbed, but didn't really want to get into it. What do you think Finch is really thinking about Jaden's last-second basket in Game 4?
Yeah, I think that actually, I don't think that the last-second basket bothered Finch at all. Especially because on the 2 possessions prior, Jamal Murray's shooting threes. Like, the Denver's trying to score. This is a rivalry, and so the layup, I don't think was a big deal, at least in Finch's eyes. I mean, would you prefer not to have it? Maybe. But I think what bothered him a little bit more was the calling everyone out defensively by name after Game 2. I think that was a very pointed attack on the Nuggets. And you could tell in the way that Finch said, hey, now he's got to back his words up, that not exactly pleased with what Jaden did there. But to Jaden's credit, he did back it up in Game 3, played great, and was a big driver of that victory, played really well in Game 4 as well. And so The thing about Chris Finch is he has an edge and a saltiness to him as well. And so I would imagine that he probably wants to say some of the same things that Jaden says, and Jaden just says them. And so he backs his guy. He does think that, any kind of reaction to the layup was overwrought. And I would imagine also that if they end up winning this series, either in 6 or 7, Chris Finch always has something loaded up ready to say. And I think he will say it. And so that post-game press conference would be appointment listening, if in fact that does happen. But they got to get there first.
Yeah. And it's a fascinating play, isn't it? Because probably not the right thing to do, but absolutely not worthy of a superstar sprinting across the court and trying to start a brawl. It's like, I really can't defend it, but like, it's kind of like classic Jaden. I don't necessarily think it's the best decision, but I kind of love it because what it really gets to is Jaden is not looking at any of this as, oh, I'm rich, they're rich, we're all going to go to our mansions after this, everybody's going to be happy, we're union brothers, we all live great lives. No, he wants to kill them.
Yes, exactly, Jim. I mean, now, yeah, I do think, I wonder if he doesn't score there, if there isn't that skirmish at the end, do the Nuggets just kind of go through the motions in Game 5, and do they just kind of, do their own thing and look disinterested as they did in 3 and 4, and maybe don't bring the same requisite fire? It's possible. I still think that they're a prideful team, and they probably would have brought the same energy that they did, whether that happened or not. But the bottom line is that we hear all the time about, oh man, the 1980s basketball, that was the best. Kevin McHale clotheslining Kurt Rambis, and the 90s, and the Bulls and the Knicks, and how they fought each other on the court, and wasn't that the greatest? And these guys these days are so soft, and this, it wasn't like it was back in the day. This is like it was back in the day. Like, Jaden McDaniels wants to destroy the Denver Nuggets, and the Denver Nuggets want to destroy the Minnesota Timberwolves. And that emotion and that energy and that bitterness is so refreshing, to see. I love that Jokic did the weird thing with Berenger at the end of the game of Game 5. What are you doing? What are you doing? And they asked Jokic about it afterward, and he said no comment, which means that he was just doing it to get under their skin, the way that Jaden did. The other one, this is tit for tat. This is pettiness on 100. And, this is what everyone craves. In this day and age, when players make all of this money, when there's free agency that moves everyone around and everyone is friendly, you have two teams that, if they ran into each other in the North Loop on a Friday night after a few drinks, they would be throwing fists in the alley. And that's awesome. That is so great. And the one thing Jaden mentioned in the post game of Game 5, which is exactly right, what we have seen so far is pure hatred, but nothing dirty. It hasn't, the play on the court hasn't gotten to cheap shots. It hasn't gotten to dangerous things like that. It has all been figurative middle fingers at each other, and just antagonizing. And to me, that's fantastic stuff. And so I think that this is a rivalry that needs to be put on a pedestal by the NBA next year at Christmas, next year opening night, any big nights. Put the Nuggets and the Timberwolves together and watch them just butt heads. It's great for the game. And overall, it's just great to develop these characters who are not afraid to talk a little smack and to flex and to go at it. That's the kind of thing that can draw the casual fan in. Oh, these teams do not like each other. I'm going to watch this, and it's the best that you could ask for.
It is, and I like the point you made too. Jaden doesn't undercut people. He doesn't try to hurt
Nope.
people. He tries to mess with their heads, which I
Mhm.
love. And by the way, a lot of the stuff that people like to celebrate as cool and old school was criminal behavior. Okay,
That's right.
clotheslining somebody on a basketball court,
Mhm.
you should be in jail, man. That ain't right. I mean, I know Kevin McHale's a Minnesota hero. That's a crime. You're trying to
Yes.
damage somebody. You're trying to damage
Mhm.
them. You're trying to take out their larynx. You're trying to keep them from being able to breathe properly. What Lambeer did was often criminal. That
Mhm.
wasn't cool stuff. That was just
Mhm.
nasty, uh, s- you know, I felonious behavior. This is
Mhm.
much better than this. This is the right kind of competition.
Yeah, it is, Jim, and even like Valanciunas in Game 5 was burly and talking smack to Jaden and setting hard screens. Good, that's what it
Yeah.
is. Christian Brown setting some hard screens. Like, good, do it. Like that's I love that kind of stuff, and so it's been the best you could ask for in that way. And something is going to happen in Game 6. If there's a Game 7, something is going to happen, and it's just another chapter in the book of this rivalry that has turned into, I do think, the best in the NBA. There's no other pairing of two teams who have met as many times as they have in the playoffs with real stakes and who play 4 times a year in the regular season and who legitimately just want to knock each other's heads off. But they do it in a way that is within the rules and pushing boundaries in the antagonism department, which is all good and well.
All right, let's get to Kyle Anderson because he
Mhm.
played really well the other night in a game where his team didn't play very well. And he's like built to annoy fans, right? He is the kind of guy a coach loves and a fan hates. But he played well the other night. And early in the series, I was coming around to the fan view. You got to play Shannon. You got to get Kyle Anderson out of there. Kyle Anderson's airballing 5-footers. Shannon is going to destroy this Nuggets defense. And Shannon got it going eventually in game 5. But he has, in general, when we put him out there this series, he hasn't done much. And he hasn't gotten to the rim. It's been really just he shot a couple threes when games have been hanging in the balance. So, listen, I think Shannon's going to be a good player eventually. But Kyle Anderson played really well the other night. What does that mean for this rotation going forward?
Yeah, I think like Kyle is a perfect guy to play when Denver plays zone defense, which they have been doing occasionally. I actually thought they were going to do it a little bit more in this series,
Right.
but they have been doing it. And he just makes the right decisions all of the time. He certainly brings a limited shot making profile to the lineup, and so you have to kind of configure lineups around him with shooting, with scoring. But he is a quarterback, and so when he is out there on the floor, typically the ball gets where it needs to go. And the Wolves get good shots and good offense. And then he's versatile defensively. He can guard a big, he can stay in front of a wing, and he gives you a lot of options that way. And so he has been deployed very strategically so far in this series. And I think that there will be more of that in Game 6 is, you put him out there when you need someone who is an adult, who really kind of makes the offense move and you need good shots. But then you also watch him and you watch how the Nuggets react to him, because if he can't make a couple of little floaters, if he can't get to the rim and score there, that does limit his impact a little bit, but certainly very valuable for the versatility on both ends of the floor and just for someone to be able to think through the game in high pressure moments. Mike Conley is the same way, is they need a brain out there on the floor to organize, to get guys in spots. The other thing about Kyle Anderson is you always see him pointing around, directing traffic. No, you go over here. No, you guard this guy right now. This is where it's going to go. And that is very helpful in the heat of the moment when guys are excited, when they're amped up, when they're trying to make things happen. And so Another just, great addition by Tim Connelly at the deadline or in the buyout market, excuse me. And then, he has a spot here. It's just, I don't think it's a 25-minute spot, but it's definitely one that can be impactful and help them win stretches of the game that they're going to need to win if they're going to come out on top of this.
Right. Let's get to our Twitter question of the week, sponsored by sglambchops.com. Once again, thanks to all of our sponsors, all of our viewers. The show is available on YouTube as well as via audio. You can go to talknorth.com, or you can just subscribe at your favorite podcast app. What's our Twitter question of the week, John?
There's one from ZE Foodie. Mark Stein reported on the All-NBA podcast on Sunday night that there is serious steam that Dallas will go heavy to lure Tim Connelly to the Mavericks, and he implied that he'd seriously listen. Chris Haynes reported something similar a few weeks ago. What are you hearing on this? Kind of the same thing we've talked about a little bit before. I do think that the Dallas Mavericks very much want Tim Connelly to at least listen to their offers, and they want to throw a bunch of money at him to get him to run their basketball operations. Ethan Casson is the CEO of the Dallas Mavericks now. He was the CEO of the Minnesota Timberwolves when Tim Connelly came aboard, so there is some history there. A reminder that Tim is under contract for one more year with the Timberwolves. There are plenty of financial incentives for him to stay here, in addition to other incentives with the team, with family, with all of those things. And so I have not been told that it is an impossibility that he will leave, but I also don't think it is inevitability either. I think that the Timberwolves, Alex Rodriguez and Mark Lowry, will make him an offer to stay on an extension. They will try to figure things out and get him to be here for the long term. He's been an amazing president of basketball operations. The Ayo Dosunmu trade, just the latest, an unbelievable move that Tim Connelly has made. So everyone knows how important he is to being here. I think that the Mavericks will throw an enormous amount of money at him to try and make him think twice and go elsewhere. But there is a lot of stuff to work through before we get to that point. And so it's something to monitor, but it's not something right now that I think is imminent that he does leave. So we'll see how it all plays out. But definitely the reports of Dallas's interest in Tim Connelly are very much real. The Timberwolves are aware of that, and they're kind of navigating that as best they can.
Good stuff, John. I appreciate it. I'll see you at the game on Thursday night. Thanks again to everyone who listens. We do appreciate it. And I hope there's more to come. It'd be fun to keep this thing going for a while here. Also, check out Michael Russo and Anthony Lapanta on The Wild. Check out Roy Smalley, Lavelle E. Neal, and myself on the Chin Music Show, our baseball show, Don Mitchell's interview show, Mark Rosen's interview show, lots of other hockey content. Check it out, and lots of other Vikings content. You can also hear John and myself on the Viking Update Show this week. We'll be joined by Alec Lewis, who also does a Vikings podcast for the network. So once again, for our producers at TalkNorth.com, I'm Jim Souhan, and for Jon Krawczynski, thanks for listening.